Welcome to Christ Temple Church, Grand Rapids, where our pastor is Suffragan Bishop Tony Thomas. I am Evangelist Valencia Agnew, and it's time for Tuesday Reflections, so grab your journal and take some notes. I want to share a quick reflection with you titled, It's Okay to Be Salty. Now, I already know what some of you are thinking, because in today's culture, if somebody says you're salty, that's not usually a compliment. In social terms, when people say someone is salty, they mean you're irritated, offended, bitter, or you're still mad about something. You know, somebody didn't speak to you, didn't invite you, didn't acknowledge you, didn't clap for you, didn't give you credit, whatever it might be, and you're still carrying it. That's what we call salty. But I want to redeem that word for the kingdom because Jesus said in Matthew 5:13, "Ye are the salt of the earth." So that means, drum roll, being salty is not only okay, it's necessary. So let's take a look at what salt means naturally. And salt has a few important purposes. First, salt is a preservative. And before refrigerators and freezers, people use salt to keep their meat from rotting. And salt basically slowed down decay and it stopped bacteria from spreading. So, in other words, salt is what stands between something being fresh and something being spoiled. So the disciples understood what Jesus meant when he said they were the salt of the earth. And then, second, salt adds flavor. You can have the best chicken, the best greens, the best potatoes, but let me tell you, if there is no seasoning, it is going to taste like struggle. It is going to taste like that chef, that cook was on the struggle bus that day. So salt brings out what's already there. And third, salt creates thirst. If you eat something salty, you start looking for water. Salt makes you thirsty. And fourth, salt changes the consistency of things. Salt melts ice. You know, when the roads are frozen, if you live in an area like where I live, for months, the roads can be frozen and dangerous. But they don't bring out fire, they don't bring out heat lamps, they bring out salt. Because salt has the ability to break up what is hard. Salt loosens what is frozen. Salt makes the dangerous surface passable again. Now let's compare that to the spiritual. When Jesus says we're the salt of the earth, he's telling us that we're supposed to have an impact on our environment. Salt is influence. Salt changes whatever it touches. And here's what I love. Salt doesn't have to make a big announcement. It doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't have to be dramatic. It just quietly does the job. And some of us need to hear that you don't have to preach a sermon every day to be salt. You don't have to quote scriptures in every post to be salt. Sometimes being salt looks like showing up with integrity, being consistent, speaking the truth in love, praying when nobody sees you, standing firm even when everyone else is folding. Salt preserves, and spiritually, God's people are called to preserve righteousness in a decaying world, meaning we're not called to blend in. We're called to slow down the spread of darkness. We are called to be the ones who don't normalize dysfunction, don't normalize disrespect, don't normalize sin, don't normalize compromise. That's what salt does. It keeps things from spoiling. And sometimes salt stings. Let's be honest. If you have a cut and salt gets in it, it burns. And that's where people get offended because sometimes when you walk in the room as a believer, your presence convicts people, not because you said anything, but because your lifestyle reminds them that God is real. Your peace irritates chaos. Your discipline irritates excuses. Your standards irritate compromise. Your healing irritates bitterness. So, yeah, salt can sting. And sometimes people will label you as judgmental, as too serious, too safe, too churchy, or just too much. But the truth is, salt doesn't sting because it's evil. Salt stings because there is an open wound. And some people don't want healing, they want comfort. But God didn't call us to comfort decay. He called us to preserve the earth. The world salty versus God salty. This is something that I have to clarify because Jesus wasn't talking about being salty the way that the world means it. He didn't mean it by being bitter and being petty, and sometimes being petty can seem a little fun, or being offended, resentful, and holding grudges. But God's salt is truth-filled, it's grounded, it's uncompromising, it's loving, it's pure, it's bold. The world's salty tears people down, but God's salty calls people higher. And sometimes being salty means you don't laugh at what everybody else is laughing at. You don't participate in conversations that dishonor people. Sometimes being salty means you don't agree just to fit in. It means you love people enough to tell them the truth. Salt makes you thirsty. Think about that. Salt makes you thirsty. If we're truly salt of the earth, our lives should make people thirsty for God. When they see our joy, they should wonder how we have it. When they see our peace, they should wonder where it comes from. When they see us forgive what should have broken us, they should wonder what kind of strength is in our life. When they see you keep showing up, even after betrayal, disappointment, and delays, they should ask, how are you still standing? And that's when we can tell them, it's Jesus. Spirituality, or should I say, as I pause here, it's like I'm thinking about how to word this with salt changes the consistency and salt melts ice. And spiritually looking at it, some people are walking around frozen in trauma. They're frozen in disappointment. They're frozen in betrayal. They're frozen by church hurt, by grief, by offenses. And sometimes their hearts are icy. Their trust is icy. Their faith is icy. And when we encounter people like that, we have two choices. We can add more cold or we can bring salt. And because we are believers, we're called to melt what life has hardened. Our kindness can melt someone's defensiveness. Consistency can melt someone's distrust. Forgiveness can melt someone's bitterness. Gentleness can melt someone's rage. Our love can melt someone's numbness. Think about it. Someone who has stopped coming to church because they were hurt, they're not loud. They might not even be angry anymore. They're just cold. They say things like, I'm good. I don't need that. Church people are fake. That's ice. And if you approach them harshly, you add more freeze. But if you approach them with humility, with patience, and with authentic love, you become salt on their icy heart. And over time, that which was once hardened begins to soften. What was unreachable becomes responsive. What was once closed begins to open up. That's what salt does. It doesn't argue with the ice. It changes the temperature of the environment. God has positioned you in spaces where people are emotionally frozen on purpose. In your family, on your job, in your friend group, even in your church. Not so you can judge them, not so you can lecture them, but so you can melt what was hardened, because salt changes consistency. So I want to encourage you. It's okay to be salty. It's okay to preserve righteousness. It's okay to carry standards. It's okay to be different. And it's okay to sting a little when people are sitting comfortably in dysfunction, because salt is not meant to blend in. Salt is meant to transform. And Jesus said if salt loses its savor, its flavor, its power, its distinctiveness, then it becomes useless. So don't lose your saltiness trying to fit in. Don't water down your conviction to keep people comfortable. Don't apologize for being set apart, because the world is decaying and God is depending on his people to stay salty. So yes, it is okay to be salty. Just make sure your salt is seasoned with grace and points people back to Jesus, because the same salt that melts ice also preserves life. And God has trusted you to be that kind of salt. Thank you for listening in on Tuesday Reflections. We invite you to join us on Tuesday mornings for our call to pray, on Transformational Thursday for Bible class, and for Sunday worship service. Details are below.